but I'm curious about your opinions about good leadership versus bad leadership, and what do you think the pearls of wisdom are there from your perspective?
A leader, in my opinion and in my experience, really needs to be there for their employees, right? For their team. And it is that team approach. And I think the best leaders that I have seen really serve the people that they're working with.
Imagine having direct access to someone who's navigated life's toughest terrains and come out stronger. Someone who's been there, done that, and can guide you with empathy, experience, and honesty. This isn't just advice. It's a lifeline, a strategy session, a chance to learn from my journey so you can accelerate yours. Without the ability to be self-aware and introspective, the ability for you to get to where you want to go, nearly impossible. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the David Guttman podcast. We're remote this week, freezing my butt off in balmy Chicago in February, my least favorite place to be in February. I came in to surprise my dad for his birthday, but today is really special because I have a dear friend of mine and one of the, maybe the best salesperson I've ever worked with before in my life, Megan Weddle. Megan, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks for inviting me. Glad to see you.
And I know this is a little out of your comfort zone, so I want you to just bear with me here because I think you have so much to be able to offer my audience. Because I think people often think that, being able to balance being a parent, being a professional, having a social life, that those things are near impossible. Yeah, I've seen you do it with my own two eyes. But I thought it might be useful just because I think it's always helpful. Because I think that the people that have taken the road less traveled often have a lot more value to give other people, as opposed to people that maybe take the more traditional path. So I thought maybe going a little bit to your upbringing about, your folks, what did they do? Were either of your parents in sales, siblings, stuff like that?
Interesting. Okay, we're going back there. My dad was an attorney, and I guess you can always say that he and my mom together were in sales because although she didn't have her own profession at the time when they were married, she did spend, I would say, 99% of the time really helping him move his career forward with, introducing him to people. And really at the end of the day, I think we all have some sort of sales that we're striving for, to have a, successful law firm, right? He had to meet people, get connected, sell his services. Like, why should they work with Walt McNamara versus the other big firms in downtown Cleveland? And so I think that my mom was really one of the number one salespeople I looked up to, and all that she did and how she involved herself in the community and networking, meeting people, and then, really taking that to the next level, introducing them to my dad, and they just together had a really dynamic way of connecting with people. So I would say definitely there were sales from the beginning that I was exposed to, but really when I think about sales, I think about just relationships, and that is what I saw, how my parents had lots of friends, lots of people in their lives, and at the end of the day, my dad worked with his friends, and that's what I grew up watching and seeing.
So it sounds like your mom was the rainmaker in the family.
She definitely, when you talk about balancing, she balanced 4 children of her own, and definitely had a huge role when it came to supporting my dad and his, endeavors with having his own solo law firm. So, there's a lot to, definitely you need to know what you're doing as a lawyer, but you also have to earn those clients. And the way that she was able to network and introduce him to a lot of really influential people definitely, I believe, led to his successful practice.
Well, I always say life is a sales call,
Mm-hmm.
right? And whether it's getting a date, getting a job, getting a customer, whatever it might be. One of the things I observed from watching you sell, and I'll come to that story because I think it's kind of a funny story about how we met. And I I took a little bit of a flyer, although not really. I kind of knew how it was going to play out. Maybe not quite as well as it did, but I thought it was going to work out well. But maybe talk. What I noticed about your style is it is always about the relationship first. And I would say the thing I see you do better than maybe anyone I've ever seen is build rapport with people who you don't really even know that well. Is that something that just you maybe emulated from seeing your mom do it, or is it something that you actually studied?
Um, that's a great question. And I would say that I think most of what I've learned and how I am with my interactions with people probably is more innate than anything. And I think, to your point, that's probably from watching my parents and the way that they had so many great relationships with people. And I mean, from the time that I was little and just going places with my parents, in the grocery store, my dad would have a great conversation with the cashiers, when we were checking out at the restaurant. Everyone was important to my parents. And I really think that instilled a lot of relationship-based value for me that, I wanted to meet people. I wanted to get to know people. I really did want to learn about, what could we maybe have in common? And that is what I experienced growing up. And I think that is what I definitely took to the field, right, with my own career and profession. But on the professional side, I will say that my, I guess, my academics and my studies in working with people and teaching people in the speech language pathology. That's my, I guess, degree, I guess you would say. I had a lot of instruction in how to listen, and really it does come down to that, really hearing what people say. Being an active listener means so much more than just being present. You really do have to, hear what someone's saying, understand what they're saying. And then I think that so much more can be, construed from that conversation. So there's a mix, but definitely I think innately I just watched my parents and learned a lot from them.
Now, when you were growing up, did you play sports too? I know you did triathlons when you were older, but did you play much sport? And you're tall too, so
I am tall, and most people think I should be, either a volleyball player or basketball player.
right.
Neither of those were the case. I swam, but then this probably will sound bad, but I have been saying a lot of complimentary things about my parents. But the minute high school came around and it was 5 a.m. swim practice, they said no. So that got squashed pretty fast. So from there, I, didn't play sports in high school. I actually didn't start up in sports again until I was an adult. And that's when I learned to run and enter the, I guess, individual competitive world of triathlons.
And were you a good student?
I was an extremely good student.
Yeah. So did you have any teachers or coaches that were like big influences for you?
Oh no, that sounds terrible. That I can't remember. So I'm going to have to go with no.
Wow.
Yeah, I know that's disappointing.
Did you have, it sounds like your parents were people you emulated.
Yes.
So I'm guessing these are people that you looked up to them as well. Like, did you ever think you wanted to be in sales? And I know you were speech pathology before you got into sales. Like, how did that, maybe talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't even know it was a career choice. Grew up in a family, my dad was an attorney. My mom, when she did go back to work, she went into the not-for-profit area of service. And then my brother became an attorney. And I just really thought about life like those just occupations of teacher, attorney, doctor. And so I went more into the educational sector because I wanted to help people. Sales, no, never was on my radar, nor did I actually think about it as a career or knew that it could be something that I would come to love and really enjoy as much as I do today. So, yeah, it was never even something I thought about.
So you're doing speech pathology professionally. So you graduate, you're a speech pathologist. Here I am stuttering as I explain your speech pathology. But how come you decided to, hey, maybe this isn't for me? Or was it a money thing? Was it something else?
And there was a combination of factors, and money was definitely included in that. I had 4 children at the time. I was working part-time, not making much money, and really the burnout was really pretty high because I specialized with working with children. And as much as I loved it and I found it rewarding to then go home to 4 children that were very young and very close in age, it was pretty exhausting. So, when you talk about the balance, that I found to be a struggle. And just in my relationships and my friends and conversations, I thought about other things I might be able to do. And my one teacher in college did say, when you do go into speech language pathology, you actually can transfer these skills from, learning how to, not learning how to speak, but, having effective communication and listening skills can really lead you to a lot of different career paths, right? So I always kept that in the back of my mind. But then as I met people and connected with them, I found out there were some interesting other options out there. And a friend had a company that did have an opening with sales. So I said, hey, what about me? Could I try doing this? And, I think the response was, what do you know about sales? And I'm like, what do I need to know? And, at the end of the day, I really, truly believe that 95% of all jobs can actually be taught. You just need to really trust in people. And that's the trust that this person gave me. And I will follow up with, someone else in this room also gave me a chance. And I think if you give people a chance, they can probably surprise you with what they're able to do. So I took on my first sales role and, I had no experience, no base salary either. So it was commission only. So I knew I had to be internally driven to, really see success. And I believe that I am a person driven internally. I also, I guess, don't ever want to disappoint anybody that takes a chance on me. So I want to really, make them feel like they made the right choice. And so I feel I did that pretty well. That experience led me to believe that, okay, I think I can do this. I think I've got a little bit of sales in me.
So, divorced mother of 4. How old were you when you got married, and how old were you when you had your first kid?
I was 27 when I got married and 28 when I had
Right.
my first child.
So, and how old were you when you got how old were you when you got divorced?
Good question. Now we're
Ballpark.
ballpark it. Let's say 40.
So having
But
gone through
that was like 3 months ago. So
yeah, right.
Just teasing.
Having gone through that experience myself, so you're now divorced mother of 4. You decide you'll go into sales and then take up Ironman triathlons because you want to have lots of free time.
I know, right? It was kind of interesting how that happened, but I was going to the gym on a pretty frequent basis. And, again, always meeting people, connecting with people. And a friend of mine had told me that she was training for her first triathlon, which happened to be actually kind of crazy, but it was half Ironman. And at the time I was like, what is an Ironman? I did not even know. And it sounded kind of fun. And I know fun's maybe not the word that everybody
Yeah.
would.
Bike 112 miles, swim 2.5, and run a marathon. Sounds like a blast.
That's the full one. So she was splitting, she was doing the half first. And I was pretty intrigued. And I was like, I used to swim and I did like swimming until my parents said it's too early for them to commit to taking me there. And I had started running when I was around 20 or so. So I was like, I can do running. And then the cycling part I was the least excited about, but it's a bike. And once you get on that bike, you can remember it all comes back to you. So I decided, hey, if she can do it, maybe I can. So I just I downloaded an app called Training Peaks. And once I committed to the program, I realized that, as long as you trust the training, you can accomplish great things. So I completed my first half Ironman. And from there, I caught the bug, if you will, and decided I'm doing the full Ironman. So 6 months later, I completed a first full Ironman in Florida, and that wasn't enough. I had to do another one in March.
Wow.
Sorry, May of the following year. So yeah.
So, that's not a small thing. And, again, people without 4 kids and, a new career direction wouldn't even think about doing that. What's it, at least 20 to 25 hours a week of training minimum, right?
It's that 5 a.m. club that you hear
Yeah.
about. I mean, you are up around 4:15 at the gym at 5, but the things that you accomplish that early in the morning before people are usually getting out of bed and having that first cup of coffee, it's incredible. It just gave me a real sense of accomplishment. It set me and my goals and really made me know that if I can do that, what can't I do? And that's really the mindset that I like to have. And I really thought I was also setting a good example for my kids, telling them that, I took my, I really wanted them to see that health was a priority and, you really need to find the time to put yourself first in that sense.
So they would come to your races with the Go Megan Go sign or whatever?
They, I didn't have them come to the long races, except for my oldest. She did travel to California, and I will say her support meant the world to me. However, during I think it took me a little over 16 hours to complete that full triathlon, full Ironman, over in Santa Rosa, California. During the time I was swimming, biking, and running, she went and got a manicure, a pedicure, went out to lunch. But she was always really good at finding me on the app and just, giving the quick, hey, good luck, keep going, Mom. So it was fun to see that she complained at the end of the day what a long day it was for her.
Spoken like the child, spoken like I could see my daughter saying the identical thing.
Yeah.
So I remember the first day we met in the conference room back at First Stop Health, and you had just happened to be in Chicago. If I remember, it was a blizzard.
It was a snowstorm, right?
Yeah. Then you just happened to drive up from a mutual guy who I'd hired the year before. Because I guess we worked together for 3 years, I think.
We did.
Right? It was 3 years. And everyone I was hiring had experience in the benefit consulting space, except you. But from your point of view, you might have thought I took a flyer on you, but all I had to hear was Ironman triathlon, 4 kids, commission-only salesperson who I think sold a couple $100,000 worth. I think he made a couple $100,000 or something like that. I'm like, man, if you can make a couple $100,000 at $500 to $1,000 a pop with commission only, telemedicine should be easy. And I think I was right.
and honestly, I know it doesn't really go with the outfit, but that's why I wore our watch. This is the other thing that we had in common. We were wearing the exact same Garmin watch. So it was a nice way for us to connect on that level. And I learned about your experiences with triathlons and competition.
Yeah, well, as you always do, you always find a way to connect. So it's a real gift. The other thing that, and I don't know, I can't remember if I've ever told you this before, but you have this one very specific talent that I've observed when it comes to sales. I think one of the hardest thing to do in sales is to close. And, it's like Glengarry, Glen Ross, always be closing. You're always closing. But the thing that's hard about it is you have to almost be annoying, but not be annoying. And I've never met someone better. Like, you walk right up to that line. You never cross it. I don't know. How do you know where that line is? Because I've seen you do it with my own 2 eyes, and I'm like, man, that was ballsy. She came right up to that.
I know.
How was that? Just like experience and pattern matching? Like, where does that come from?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I can't tell you where that comes from, but I do know when to just kind of like ease off, ease up, but you're right. That is something that a lot of people tell me. And it has helped me though, be successful. And I will never forget the story, a broker friend of mine now, who is a friend. And I really will say that about so many of the people I, work with, partner with. You came to my town, you rented a car, drove 3 hours, and we're sitting in Starbucks, and I get a text saying, sorry, Megan, we need to cancel today. And I started sweating. I was freaking out. The president of the company is with me. We're supposed to go to this meeting at this firm, and I just get a cancellation. I did not want to disappoint you. So I remember saying, excuse me. I picked up the phone, called that person, and I said, please help me. I need your help today, because this will not go over well if we can't have this meeting. So what can I do to help you help me today have this meeting? And, I think sometimes really it is that it's persistence, but it's also really being vulnerable. And I showed my vulnerability with this individual. And I was like, I need your help today. And they said, okay. And they stayed on course. We got to have that meeting. And from that meeting, you and I, we earned a lot of clients from that firm. I mean, and I won't go into the specifics, but because of that meeting, it just was life-changing for me. So I do see what you're saying, and I do know that I think some other people might have just accepted that, oh, sorry, the meeting's canceled.
99 out of 100 would have just been like, oh, they canceled last minute, and kind of badmouth the client. And not that they didn't do something that wasn't super nice, but again, you're the vendor, right? And that's how people usually treat vendors, unless you don't let them exactly. And again, you weren't bashing them like, how dare you? It was more like, I understand things come up, but is there anything you do? The vulnerability, people really underestimate how, because I think that vulnerability, there's a direct line between vulnerability and authenticity, and people buy from people they like and people they trust, and you don't like and trust people that aren't authentic.
100%. I couldn't agree more with you. I honestly think about that a lot from my experience. You want to do business, including myself, with people you want to hang around and be with. And the more authentic someone is with you, and the more that they'll, open up to you, then the more that it's going to be reciprocal. And when you get to know someone at those different levels, it really does go for both people, right? It is that true relationship and what a partnership should be like, even in the business world.
So only because, I traveled a lot with you and a bunch of the other salespeople too. And in the benefit consulting world, the continuum, the diversity of the kinds of people that are in that business, from people that are really good business people and exceptional leaders to people that maybe not so much, and everything in between. I'm curious because I don't think you've managed salespeople yourself. You've just been a kick-ass,
I have no interest.
If I'm correct, top salesperson 6 years in a row, right?
6 years in a row.
Yeah. So, and usually doing this total sales of the 2 or 3 people, if not more, below you. So that's, anyway, and I'll brag about you instead of you bragging about you. But I'm curious about your opinions about good leadership versus bad leadership, and what do you think, as someone who's been led and managed yourself and seen hundreds, if not thousands, of other people led and managed by others, kind of what do you think the pearls of wisdom are there from your perspective?
Yeah, I think that is, it's a leader, in my opinion, and in my experience, really needs to be there for their employees, right? For their team. And it is that team approach. And I think the best leaders that I have seen really serve the people that they're working with, right? And they're not doing it in an arrogant way. They're just really being helpful. How can I help you today? What can I do for you? It's just really that type of leadership that can carry a team and really help them internally be motivated when they know that their leader, their manager has, the best interests at heart. They're caring for that person. They truly care what's happening, not just at work. You're not just a dollar to them, but you're also like a human to them. So I think those are the best leaders, when they're really looking at their team holistically, like, how can I support this person? I know, for example, when you were helping me, you really were helping me. You were educating me when I didn't know what the terms were in the benefits world. You were supporting me by giving me slide decks because I didn't know how to create one. You were giving me things that would just enhance my sales. Without me being quote unquote bothered with all the little stuff, you were giving me those tools that became extremely critical for, me closing the deal. And I think that when a leader actually cares about their team and they, want to serve their team, there's a purpose and there is really a true relationship that's built. And that's seen. It really is seen. And again, in my experience, I've seen leaders not do that. And, I've seen leaders that have had a terrible time engaging with their team. And the reason is there's no trust. And, you should, and I think it's imperative to be able to trust your leader and go to them when you do need help and support, and not feel like you're going to get scolded, or you're not doing your job the way you should be doing your job. So, it's unfortunate when the trust isn't there and the leader seems to take that the higher road. And it's disappointing, because it doesn't just impact the person that maybe they're managing directly, but it really sets a tone throughout the entire company. And
Right.
it's unfortunate. So yeah, having a great leadership team, it's critical.
So, your oldest daughter, remind me how old she is. What, 23 now?
About to be 23.
23. So just a couple years younger than my daughter. As she's thinking about her career, and you're giving her career advice about where should she go work. I think she's actually in the benefit consulting space, right, as we
She
speak.
is.
But do you talk about how she should think about who she works for, and maybe talk a little bit about that? Because I know I've just been giving some guidance to my daughter where I'm like, don't worry about the company, don't worry about the industry, don't even worry about the job function. Worry about who you work for. And is that person emotionally invested in your success?
Exactly. And honestly, that's a conversation that we've had. And it really, I don't know, I think it stood out to me, and I just couldn't have been happier. My heart was so full when she told me how much she loves her job. And I asked, why? Why do you love your job? And she said that she loves all the people she works with. And to me, the culture of a company can make or break, whether you're getting paid what you think you should be getting paid, or maybe you think you deserve more. But at the end of the day, when people value you and really appreciate your your involvement in the company and on a team, and really take that true team approach, it really stands out. And I can see it with what she's doing and what she's engaging with at her age as a entry level position. She is being, invited to go to New York City. She's in Alexandria, Virginia today. She has the trust. And I think what really stands out with her leadership and her team that she works with is they want her to learn, and learning is going to mean being involved. And, and it's okay to make a mistake, and they're not going to chew your head off if that happens, because that's what you're here to do, is learn and grow. So yeah, the culture of a team and the way they embrace people and are able to give them the guidance and knowledge in an active learning environment, I think it just means a lot to people.
Yeah, I think people grossly underestimate. Again, when you're so focused on I'll use air quotes, what's best for the company, you've already screwed up. You've already screwed up, because you're not focused on the individual. And in my experience has been absolutely not even close. It's not even close. Not even a close call. When I focus on the individual first and the company second, I always get a better result. So even if I was just a selfish prick, which I think I'm not, but even if I was, I would get a better result if I didn't act like one. And yet it's kind of shocking how often people do.
Yeah, no, it really is. And I think as a company grows, I think it's really important for them to remember to keep that individualism and prioritize people that have been there from the start, or, have continued to, grow with the company. I really think that helps the culture of the company if there aren't these layers between, someone like myself on sales versus executive leadership, and having that. Again, I'll go back to you, Dave, because, 6 years ago, you were the president of the company, and you accepted text messages from me. And it didn't matter if it was 9 p.m. at night or, 9 a.m. in the morning. Work hours didn't matter. You picked up the phone every time I called. I mean, that is so meaningful for people, and especially myself. And having that connection with someone and knowing that they're there for me, whether it is a personal matter or a work matter, it speaks volumes to the character of the, leadership, and then how that trickles through the entire company.
So, how do you companies go through evolutions, right? Especially if they're growing. Yet maybe you're venture capital backed, maybe you're angel backed, maybe there's an exit, maybe you IPO, maybe it's private equity, whatever it might be. Companies change and morph and cultures do with them. Again, let's imagine you were giving, advice to your daughter Delaney, like, how would you have her think about those processes and those changes and maybe how to navigate them?
That's a great question. How to navigate the change in a company? I think you just need to be, open to change, and I think that's, for everything in your life. People do change. Clients change. Companies change, and knowing that you can't control the change, but you can control how you accept the change is the important piece. And so I really do believe it really is on yourself to figure out how to navigate that in the best possible way that will be positive for yourself and, again, for the entire company. Because you're right. I've seen my fair share in all the different careers that I've had of people coming and going, and companies growing, companies downsizing. Things happen, right? And accepting it, but learning with grace how to accept it, and knowing how it can really be positive, because change can be positive. It just really is the way that you look at it.
Hmm. You know, One of the other things that I noticed about you, we never really talked about it, but it's just my observation. I could be totally wrong. No, it's good. And I think that I actually think mentally healthy people always feel at least some imposter syndrome. I feel like if you don't feel a little bit of imposter syndrome, maybe you're a bit of a narcissist, you know? Um, but I definitely have seen again, observation, I've seen yours diminish a lot from when I first met you. Would you say that that's fair? And if I'm right about that, do you think it's just reaching a certain measure of success that's caused you to feel less of that, or am I even right in the first place?
No, you are right. And I think, honestly, I have felt that always. And I think it keeps me humble, but also, to your point, it has diminished. And not totally, because there are definitely times I pinch myself and think, how did I do this? But other times I'm like, I know how I did this. And, then I'm like, wait, and this is why I'm successful. And I need to really, ground myself and come back to the realities of, the hard work that, for me is 24/7. It's not, just a 9 to 5 punch in. It's a lifestyle I embrace. But yeah, there have definitely been times where I have second guessed, and that imposter syndrome has definitely, I have felt it.
Yeah. No, it's definitely, I've just seen you stand up for yourself more, which I think is, especially if you don't have the best leader, that sometimes that can be really important.
I do have my circle of friends, though, that I do go to before I do any of that. I always have to get myself in check first. Like, hey,
you want to make sure that you have some sounding boards that
100%. And it
Yeah.
really is a circle of trust, and people that are within that circle of trust that I can go to. And that is just, again, I think that's needed for everyone.
Right. Tell me a little bit about how you feel about mentorship, both being mentored yourself and are there people that you met? Obviously your children you do, but are there other people that you mentor either formally or informally?
Yeah, I think I mentor people informally. Anytime there's somebody new on the team, I'm always happy to, have them come to any meetings that I'm, presenting at. I'm always happy to talk to them about, the best strategies that I've seen work in my experience. I really do like sharing, success stories. Again, it's funny that you bring that up because last week I was supposed to be at an event in Denver, but unfortunately my back went out on me and I was unable to travel to a team event. And my leader asked me to put together a presentation for creating relationships. And I was like, why would anyone ask me to do a presentation? And I
Right.
think I might have even talked to you about this.
Yeah, you did.
And you actually gave me some great advice. And you said, why don't you think about it in another way, that you're doing this, for your kids, or you're helping your kids. And I actually, and I think part of it also was because I was laid up on a couch, decided, okay, I am going to put 100%, even more so, into this presentation. And it was really a wonderful, in the end, the outcome, it was great. And I was like, wow, there really is a lot of things I think about with relationships without even knowing it. But if I'm able to help others, because maybe it does come a little bit more innately and naturally and organic for me, and maybe that's not the case with everybody. And it is something that I'm learning, that everybody does have strengths in different areas, of course. And if I can mentor and help somebody increase their likelihood of, getting on a texting relationship with a client versus, cold calling and, hoping someone's going to call you back, helping them engage in really deepening and strengthening relationships, then I'm all for it. I will help people all day long.
Yeah. I think people really underestimate how much mentoring other people actually helps you. In fact, I think way more than it helps the other person, though obviously you want it to be helpful to them.
Right.
Yeah. Again, I think the same thing about being a parent. I really don't think it even occurred to me about being happy or what that even meant until I had like a little girl looking up at me, like expecting to get that from me. And I'm like, I better figure this out because how else am I going to teach it to her? So I'm curious. So 2 boys and 2 girls.
2 boys, 2 girls.
Right. So totally sexist of me to ask this, but I'll ask it anyway, which is, did you feel like you parented them? Every kid has a different personality, right? But did you feel that there was a gender aspect to maybe how you might, sort of nudge a son versus a daughter in any way, shape, or form, or not really?
I don't really know if it has anything to do with the different genders. To me, it's more birth order.
Okay.
And I've seen it firsthand in my own family. Firstborn driven, has her own goals. She sets out to do it. She's extremely independent, well-traveled. Second, was told what to do a lot. And I think I've had to really nurture more with him. And, he honestly didn't have the drive to go to college right away. It took him 1.5 years to think about, is this what I want to do? And, I think his path and his journey was perfect for him, because he did go into a lot of different careers and found that the challenges were, he chose the path of college after, being in the manual labor world for a while. And I think the differences for me, and then, the third, wow, I don't even know. He's an entrepreneur, and he's driven, but no one's like my firstborn. He's definitely going to the beat of his own drum, wants to be crazy successful, is, a little bit more confident in himself, which is great. I know great things he'll achieve great things. But he wants to, out of the gate, own a company,
Wow.
Baby
How old
steps
is he?
here. He's my senior in high school.
Oh my God.
And then my youngest, she goes to the beat of her own drum. She's seen it all. And she's going to do what she wants to do. And, as much as I try to encourage different areas of her life and growth, she's got it done. She's like, you don't need to tell me what to do. I know what to do. And, she's the classic youngest child, 16 going on 35.
It's hard not to be prescriptive sometimes with your kids. One, they got to figure it out on their own anyway. As much as you might try to, it's fool's errand to try to tell your kids what to do, other than maybe clean your room and,
Yeah.
don't set the house on fire. So how do your kids feel about, because, you're able to do really nice things for your mom, for your kids, things that a lot of other kids don't get to experience. Do they have an appreciation for how successful you've been? And do they recognize that? Or is it, oh, mom just sells things?
Well, that's funny that you should say that because we do have to have a heart to heart every once in a while because when I'm not traveling, I am home. And they think that I can just, at the drop of a dime, run and do whatever they need for them. And mom doesn't work. She's just at home and she travels for fun. And so, and you and I have traveled together. So, it's
Not
not
that
all
much fun.
No, no. So,
The Holiday Inn in Cleveland. Right.
yeah, getting stuck in a Kansas City airport for 6
Right.
hours. I mean, there's just,
Yeah.
so many issues when it comes to traveling. But I think as they've started to look at careers and actually, my son was at a job fair today and he has really started to ask the questions and he really is more interested in, what I'm able to do. And I think they're coming around to seeing that mom is successful and she does work really hard and they are very grateful for what they receive. So that's a nice thing to witness that they don't just expect things from me.
Right.
They know that I do work hard. And so they're very appreciative.
Yeah, I know that for a long time, my daughter just said, "Oh, you just tell people what to do. You don't actually do anything." And then, came to realize, actually, maybe dad does a few things. So,
Exactly.
which is gratifying when they finally come around. And, you just got to give it time.
Yeah, you do have to give it time. And I mean, obviously, my oldest, because of her, her own career path that she's chosen, it's been really exciting. She actually opted to attend a second meeting. I was in her office twice, and
She
one
has an
time
office.
in downtown Chicago. Yeah.
Wow.
And the firm I went to, there was a meeting that included her unit, and there were about, 20 people in the meeting. And then I came back a couple weeks later, and it was a totally different unit. And she's like, I think I might come in again and watch you. And
Wow.
she said that she really loves watching me present and is excited that she learns something new every time. So, that's a nice compliment. And it definitely, I think one of the highest compliments you can get is from your children.
Because they're going to be your harshest critic.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So, once you reach a certain level of success and maybe you have some investments and things like that, and while you still want to continue to, do well financially in your regular job, do you think about 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Would you retire? What might that look like? How do you think about that the future of your professional career and whether or not it might sunset at some point, not because it has to, but because you choose for it to?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, honestly, if I'm being real, I would love to be financially secure enough to live somewhere in the South and visit Chicago in the summer.
Come to Miami.
And that's on the radar. Yeah, so that would definitely be something I would be very interested in and welcoming if I could do it the way I want to do it. And that is, again, being able to help support my kids, through college while they still have those years ahead of them. I'm sure there's going to be some, big momentous occasions like weddings in my near future that I'll have to be, prepared for. But as long as I can think about a time where maybe I could scale back, I think I would love if there was a world where I could work part-time. I mean, I do enjoy what I do. And I'm passionate about my career. And like I mentioned earlier, it's not just something I just clock in for and clock out of. It's, it's a real passion of mine. So if there's a world where I can live South and do this and then travel, I will definitely welcome that.
Would you want to manage other salespeople? Is that something you'd like to do? Or
No.
you'd be like, not a chance?
No, not a chance, because I'm not very manageable. And I know that's going to sound terrible. And I do apologize for saying that, but there are certain things that aren't important to me. And it's the closing of a deal that's extremely important. It's the relationships that I build. I am not a data-driven person. And I think to be a manager, sometimes you need to get into the details of data. And I don't care how many phone calls you make. I want to see the results. And so I think I would be less inclined to be staring at a Salesforce, if you will, kind of platform and really analyzing and picking apart people's activity.
Right.
So I believe there's meaningful activity versus, numbers, right? And it's, to me, yes, you have to have meetings to be successful and you need to get in front of people. I'm not good at documenting things. So again, I don't know if I would be able to be great at managing that.
You sound like a CEO.
Is that it?
That's what it sounds like.
Does that, I mean, I don't have time. If I make 15 calls or have conversations, I don't know why I have to go document that. I know what I did, and I don't think it's important. Again, I know I don't think it. Other people do. I don't think I need to put into a Salesforce platform that I made 10 calls today, or what was the result of the call? That's what's important. Now I will notate that, but I'm definitely not going to, say I left
a voicemail.
Yeah, voicemail. Who cares? I mean, anyone can smile and dial. And if it's, not the right people, and if you're so focused on the numbers and not what's the end goal, what came out of that one meeting, maybe one meeting is more powerful and means more than 10 little meetings with all the wrong people. So, again, so I don't know if
I don't know if you remember
be able to
this.
manage.
I don't know if you remember this, but it's funny you say that because, as you know, I'm very data driven.
I know you are. That's why I said.
But in fact, when I created the sales scorecard back at First Stop Health, the reason I did it was because you had more sales than all the rest of the salespeople combined. And so I'm like, okay, what the hell is she doing differently? So I basically looked at every scrap of data we had. And actually, to be fair, I didn't find you difficult to manage at all. Because you managed how many deals, how many meetings did you have? How many appointments got set? How many got kept? How many deals how many, contracts went out? How many contracts got signed? Those are the things that really mattered. And when I looked at all the data, I basically did it to figure out what you were doing. And then once I did it, I was like, oh, wait a second. I can apply this to all the salespeople and compare them. And it was actually really diagnostic. Like I was able to tell, this person's not very good at doing the presentation step. This person is really bad at asking for the close. Like the data made that really clear. And fortunately, because I think what ends up happening is people that are the sales more like a sales manager versus a sales leader. Mm-hmm. They're managing, how many dials did you make and how many voicemails did you leave? And, they might look at some of the other downstream stuff too, but to me, the downstream stuff is the only stuff that mattered because I don't care if you made 3 phone calls to get 3 meetings or 300 phone calls to get 3 meetings. You got 3 meetings. Right. I don't care how you did it. Like, I don't care if you work 12 hours a month. If you deliver the result, you hit your quota. What do I care?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, if you, have you ever thought about, doing something on your own? Because the one thing I'll tell you is raising money is all about sales. And there's no doubt in my mind, you could raise whatever money you wanted to raise. I'm just curious if you ever even thought about that.
On my own?
Yeah.
As much as I know I am, an independent person and I, am internally driven, I do think it takes a team. And I do want to, if I ever did anything, I would want to be surrounding myself with, people smarter than me, people that I look up to, obviously, as part of the team approach. I think that would be something I would always, be welcome to. But
would you ever start a business with your kids or any of your kids?
I've actually thought about that. Yeah, I've actually thought about, not that I would ever open a restaurant, but because I don't know the first thing about that. But just something like that always sounds so, I don't know, so romantic in a way, to be like, oh, it's a family restaurant on the beach.
On the beach in Miami.
See, now we're going somewhere, right? But yeah, if there was something that somebody presented me with, I would always, I always am open to listening to people because I think, the minute you stop listening to people, then, that's closed-minded. So,
yeah.
I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if I didn't listen to my brother-in-law who was like, you need to, all those people that say you need,
right.
And he was giving me names of people to contact and just to talk to them about what do they do what's their career. And that is essentially how I got connected to you, because I reached out to a fraternity brother of my brother-in-law's, who then I just asked him, what does he do in life? He told me what he did. And then he was like, I don't think we're hiring, but if you want to get connected to Dave, I can reach out and see if he'd be willing to take a meeting. And voila, that's how it all started.
Good old Alex. He somehow always found a way to get that one big deal. So when you think about, having 4 children and trying to be a role model for them, part of what I'm sure you do is you're trying not just to show, hey, here's how you can be successful financially, but here's how you can be happy, purposeful, content, satisfied. How do you think about that, sort of, having that for yourself and having that as a role model for your kids?
Yeah. I do think about that, and I do try to be a role model with the ways that we are, even together and how we spend our time. And I think it's very important. We really do a lot of family things. And when I say that, I mean, even our vacations are with extended family. Next week, I'm going to travel to see my mom and her husband in a real remote area of Mexico. And I'm taking my 2 oldest children just because the stars align and they can take the time off where the other 2 can't. And I really think that that quality of family time is something that I have instilled in them. And, they're best friends with their cousins that live in different states. And I really just think that they see that happiness, again, is just really surrounding yourself with people that are really kind and nice, and, whether that's family or their friends. And I also think what has been really good for my children to see is keeping a smaller circle of friends versus needing to have everyone be your friend, right? That is not always going to be to your advantage. And getting to know people, less people, but deeper connections and relationships with those people, those are friendships that will last, forever. And my dad did teach me that also. His very best friends were from his fraternity days. We call our group the fraternity cousins, because from there we all had families, or, my parents had a family, they all had families. And then we all grew up traveling and going to the beach together. And since then, my best friends are those people, the children I grew up with. Even if we only saw each other a couple times a year, we stayed connected. And having those deep rooted relationships with people, it brings happiness. They're there all the time. They see all sides of you and they accept you. So that's happiness to me, is just finding the right circle of friends and family to be with.
If you could go back in a time machine to maybe Delaney's age, 24, 25, or 23, I guess she is, right?
Yeah.
And give yourself a few pieces of advice, maybe advice that you give Delaney now, what would those gems be?
Honestly, I think at that age, I was so concerned about the future. And I was always thinking, what's next? What's next? What's next? And although that can be really great and, it's wonderful to have goals, I really think you have to stop and really embrace the moment you're in. I think that's taken me a long time to realize, but really appreciating the today. And it helps you kind of just set your expectations and not be disappointed. And really, I would just say, take advantage of the moment that you're in every day. And you'll find something that's beautiful to celebrate.
Is there a process you go through and, journal every day? Is there something you do to help you stay present to do that? Or is it just something that's just conscious action that you take?
Just conscious action that I take. I mean, whether it's, really, I was joking with someone today, we've got the frigid cold weather in Chicago today. Next week, it will be 40, maybe 45 and sunny. And you will see people embrace that.
Right.
And they will be wearing shorts, I bet.
Right.
I guarantee you will see people just with the biggest smiles on their faces. And those are just, finding the little things every day. I think I just do that. I try, at least, whether it's like, taking my dogs on a walk or having a kid actually engage in a conversation in the morning with me,
Right.
that's a win. So
Right.
look for the little wins every day.
So I was talking to Sina, my wife's mom, and she also has 4 children, and she made the comment to me that she's only as happy as her least happy kid. Would you
That
say?
rings true. And I mean, that is serious. And you really, it means a lot. When your kids are happy, you're happy. And if someone's suffering, you are suffering even more. And I know that juggling 4 kids and 4 different personalities is a challenge. And I am not saying that I'm in any way, like I haven't found the secret sauce there. It's a trial by error, if you will. But one thing I really like to do is to take each kid on their own and do something with them, to really have that one-on-one time, whether it's, even just running around the, area that we live, or, going on a fantastic trip, whatever they want to do, how I can find a way to connect with them is important.
Like
But
you do with your clients.
yeah.
um, all right. So someone asked me this question, and I always think it's a really good way to wrap up, which is, okay, so now flash forward 20 years, 25 years. You're still around, but maybe enjoying the sunset years. What would you want your kids to say about you?
Oh boy, what I want them to say about me is that they want to and they enjoy hanging around me. I want
Hmm.
my adult children to enjoy and look forward to time with me. Yeah, also I would love them to, say that they really appreciate, the upbringing, and hopefully that they had a great childhood.
Well, I hadn't gotten that answer yet. I love that answer that they'd like spending time with me. It's actually the thing that always surprises me the most about my daughter is that she wants to spend time with
Right.
me. I'm
It's
like,
such a
it's
compliment.
such a compliment. I know. Cause I got along great with my parents, but didn't really want to necessarily hang out with them, especially when I was in my 20s. Now that I'm a
Mhm.
little bit older, it's different. But yeah, well, Megan, I just want to thank you again for coming out of your comfort zone just a little bit and sharing, because I think some real pearls of wisdom here that I think people will benefit from. So thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me.